Seeking to rescue his kidnapped relatives, Lancelot finally arrived at Sir Turquine's castle, perched on top of a precipitous cliff like a predator prowling the desolate landscape. Its tall, imposing walls seemed to defy anybody who dared to draw near. Yet this sinister atmosphere in the air did not intimidate Lancelot. With unshakable resolve, he rode up to the castle gates and, raising his voice, challenged Sir Tarquin to a duel. "Sir Turquine, step out of your lair and face me in single combat. You, so contemptuous of honor and justice, will now have the chance to prove your worth against a proper knight." The ensuing silence was broken only by the cawing of crows flying over the castle. The heavy wooden doors opened with a bang, and Sir Turquine strode out, mounted on a black steed and wearing armor as dark as night. With an expression of cruelty and arrogance, his face contorted into a grim smile upon seeing Lancelot. "Well, oh well, what do we have here? Yet another Camelot knight is coming to challenge me in my own castle. Such impudence!" "This is not about impudence, Sir Turquine, but about justice. You have taken noble knights captive, besmirching the honor of chivalry. I have come to free them and make you pay for your crimes." "Crimes!" Turquine taunted with a loud laugh. "Force is the only offense I recognize, and I'm stronger than any of you. I've already defeated dozens of Round Table knights, and you will be just one more. We shall see. Let the Lord decide who he thinks has the truth." Before long, both knights pitted their wits against each other, initiating a duel that would go down in the history of chivalry. Lancelot's rage collided with Turquine's brutality in an epic clash between light and darkness, honor and dishonor. The clashing sound of swords rang out like thunder, and sparks burst in the air as Lancelot and Turquine crossed blades. With raw, savage strength, Turquine charged forward with fierce blows, attempting to crush Lancelot with the sheer weight of his sword. But Lancelot remained steadfast and serene, deftly warding off the blows. Lancelot's dexterity and agility shone through with every movement. He moved with the agility of a leopard, dodging Turquine's strikes and looking for gaps in his opponent's defense. With a firm and experienced hand, his sword suddenly seemed to have a life of its own, delivering blows that were aimed at the weak points in Turquine's armor. The battle continued when Lancelot, making the most of a reckless moment by his opponent, managed to strike a powerful blow. His sword struck Turquine's helmet with a heavy impact, sending him reeling backwards. Turquine, now feeling trapped, tried one last desperate blow, but Lancelot anticipated it, dodging the sword and driving his blade into his enemy's chest. Turquine groaned in pain. With his sword pointed at him, Lancelot said, "Surrender yourself, Sir Turquine. Victory is mine." With his face twisted by pain and hatred, he spat blood on the ground, but still cursed, "I will never surrender to a Round Table knight. I'd rather die than become Arthur's prisoner." With a heavy sigh, Lancelot readied himself to strike the final blow. However, before he could act, Turquine drew his dagger and thrust it into his own chest. Lancelot gazed at Turquine's body with a combination of sadness and relief. The battle had been fierce, but justice prevailed. He had redeemed the honor of the imprisoned knights and wiped out a major threat to Arthur's kingdom. Now all that remained was for him to free the captives and return to Camelot with his mission accomplished. With Turquine now dead, and with the help of Sir Gareth, who had just returned with reinforcements from Arthur's court, Lancelot forced the fortress garrison to surrender and entered the castle. The blood trails of the tyrant's victims dotted the path towards the dungeons, where the captive knights awaited their fate in humidity and darkness. With every step Lancelot took, the sound of the chains and the moans of the prisoners rang off the walls, exacerbating the feeling of oppression and injustice. When he reached the dungeons, Lancelot was met with a regrettable scene. Dozens of knights, who had once been proud and courageous, were now chained and dejected, with hope almost gone from their eyes. Lancelot spotted Sir Lionel and Sir Ector among them, his family members, their armor corroded and their faces stained with fatigue. The two knights, upon hearing the familiar voice, raised their heads in disbelief. "Lancelot, is that really you?" "Yes, indeed. I've come to free you and restore your dignity." With Garrus's help, Lancelot broke the chains and freed the captive knights. There was joy and relief in the dungeon, and the knights, released from Turquine's oppression, gratefully embraced Lancelot with admiration. The knights left Turquine's castle together, now empty and silent, like a monument to defeated tyranny. The return of Lancelot and the rescued knights to Camelot turned into a triumph. The freed knights were greeted as heroes. With an open smile, Arthur welcomed Lancelot with open arms and praised his courage and gallantry. The celebrations went on for days, and Lancelot's name was again echoed in songs and stories, celebrating his victory over tyranny and his loyalty to the ideals of chivalry. Throughout the days that Lancelot was away, the Queen lived in constant worry. With each piece of information about Sir Tarquin's cruelty, her anguish increased, and the fear of losing the knight she held so dear consumed her inside. The nights were endless, and her sleep was plagued by nightmares in which Lancelot was beaten and imprisoned by the tyrant. Now, with Lancelot safely back in Camelot, Guinevere could finally breathe a sigh of relief. The tension that had been trapping her was gone, giving way to a profound sense of gratitude and relief. But the experience had made her see more clearly the intensity of her feelings for Lancelot. The fear of losing him had exposed the extent of her feelings, an emotion that transcended mere awe and respect, and which brought her into constant conflict between reason and passion. As Guinevere watched Lancelot from the balcony, partaking in the celebrations, she felt a blend of happiness and melancholy. The joy of having him back countered the awareness of the passion sweeping through her heart. She knew that her bounden duty was to Arthur, her king and husband to whom she had pledged her allegiance. But every day her heart seemed to be drawn to Lancelot, the knight who had won not only her admiration, but also her affection. In the euphoria of the celebrations, Guinevere withdrew into her thoughts, reflecting on the future and the challenges ahead of her. Fate had brought Lancelot into her path in a way they could never have imagined, and now it was up to her to cope with this feeling growing in her chest, like a flower born among stones, for at no time had she wished to open herself up to this love.